Hi, and thank you for joining me for another video. And friends, today I want to talk to you about the Lamb of God. Have you ever spoken with a Christian and asked them where in Torah do they justify the later narrative of Yeshua being the Lamb of God? Because friends, anyone familiar with Christian apologetics knows that Christian believers or Messianic believers cannot and do not justify what they believe by the only standard that we were given to derive all of our doctrinal beliefs from, and that's the Torah. In other words, they choose to use the esoteric portions of the prophets to derive their doctrines from. A notion that Torah never sanctioned. However, in reference to the Lamb of God, they make an attempt to justify this in the 5 books of Moses. They'll tell you that Genesis 22, verse 6 through 8, and verse 13 justifies the notion of Yeshua being the Lamb of God. It states,
And Isaac spake unto Abraham his father, and said, My father. And he said, Here am I, my son. And he said, Behold the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering? And Abraham said, My son, God will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering. So they went both of them together. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him a ram caught in a thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram, and offered him up for a burnt offering in the stead of his son.
I mean, it sounds pretty convincing. God said that he would provide a lamb, but he provides a ram, which solidifies the notion for Christians that Yeshua is the lamb that God was going to provide all along. And friends, I don't have to tell you how much has been built on this analogy used by Messianics to justify the supposed Lamb of God. But friends, how about if I told you that this supposed analogy makes no sense in Hebrew, nor even in the plain simple English version of the text? Okay, so anyways, before I explain, let's first start out by defining a few English terms. 1, a lamb, keves in Hebrew, a sheep of at least a 1-year-old, either a ewe or a ram. 2, a ram, in Hebrew, ayil, a male sheep of any age able to reproduce, and they usually are fertile at around 5 months. 3, a ewe, in Hebrew, rachel, a female sheep of any age able to reproduce. They're usually fertile at around 6 months. 4, biblical flock, in Hebrew, son, either sheep or goats. And 5, one of the flock, in Hebrew, sa, a bovid or a bovidae, which is the family that both sheep and goats belong to. Okay friends, what if I told you that the word used in both Genesis chapter 2 verse 7 and 8 is sa and not keves, which again doesn't specifically mean lamb, but literally one of the flock, either a sheep or a goat. And friends, this actually solves the whole missing lamb theory, or how the text explicitly puts it, the missing goat or sheep theory. Why? Because in verse 13, Abraham finds a ram caught by his horns in the thicket. Because remember, a ram falls under the category of a sa, in other words, a member of the biblical flock, either a sheep or a goat. And why did the Almighty give a ram instead of a ewe or a goat? Because only a ram could grow horns that could get caught in a thicket. Simple. Now, can you honestly say that there is any claim that there is any missing lamb in the narrative of Genesis 22? And really, when have you ever heard Jesus referred to as the goat or the sheep of God? And friends, it actually gets even more absurd if you think about it. Because even according to the mistranslated Bibles, didn't we just explain that a ram could very much still be a lamb? Also, even during the Passover, the Israelites were not commanded to smear the blood of the lamb on their doorposts, but actually the verse states in Exodus 12:5,
The animals you choose must be year-old males without defect, and you may take them from the sheep or the goats.
in other words, even the blood of the ram could have been smeared. Today, my friends, I want to encourage you to consider the true path. I want to encourage you to consider Torah Judaism. For more information on becoming Jewish, please visit bejewish.org. Thank you.